Hello, and today we'll be playing Hearthfire. This is the second to last update for the game, so the next update should be the final one for the story. So Tarmac is going to take Chris home. Before he does that, Chris is going to say goodbye to everyone. I groaned softly, eyes slowly cracking open. I blinked away the worst of the crud sealing them shut. Next to me, a mountain of white fur slowly bowed. My teeth bulged, biting back a laugh as I saw how goofy his supine stance was. The seats were partly kicked off, one under and one over, a foot threatening to fall off the edge of the mattress. One arm was flopped behind his head, with the other draped over his bulbous belly. A dollop of drool had trailed from the corner of his mouth as well. His padded nose jutted straight up in the air, glistening slightly in the morning light that filtered through the room. I chewed at my lower lip, temptation rearing its ugly head as I stared at Tomac's dozing form. Spherical temptation was within reach. All I had to do was reach out and touch it. My fingers stroked in the furred orb that constituted Tomac's middle. It was a paradox, both soft and plush, yet hard as a rock. It was like someone wrapped a boulder with a layer of memory foam. My fingers flexed as I kneaded the white fur globe like a cat might, and never really thought about this kind of body before I met Tomac. If anything, I was surrounded by fitness hunks, thanks to Devil's after-school proclivities. Something was alluring about a strongman kind of build guy, a guy built like a walking refrigerator. Honestly, thoughts about him falling over onto me like one were beginning to lurk in the back of my mind. Enjoy yourself. I bolted upright, hands shooting away from Tomac's middle as if electrified. He caught my hand and, surprisingly, returned it to his stomach. I felt my face flush as he purposely whirled a few slow circles around the rounded expanse. Do not worry. I do not take offense. He chuckled quietly, a purr churning up from deep inside. I enjoy that you enjoy my body. I didn't know what to say to that other than to bashfully curl my tail around my leg. He released my hand, folding his arms behind his head. I knew him well enough by now to know that he was teasing, purposefully rolling his shoulders back to put his girthy gut on display. Not one to deny an invitation, my fingers slid back over his stomach. I pressed into it, tracing the contours, even going as so far as to give the sizable wall a gentle heft. Well, you did tease me a lot last night, I muttered, pressing my fingers a little harder. I could feel the barest trace of an abdominal outline as he clenched. He molded my words, tilted his head to look over his bulging chest at me. Perhaps, God, why is his smug obstinance so attractive? If I wasn't wrestling with leaving soon, I'd probably do something salacious right about now. Though, now that I think about it, this might be my last time alone with him. I shouldn't let the pit in my stomach drive me away from him. Not when he's got a raging boner anyway. The gentle giant subtly blushed, gaze locking with mine before trailing to what I was staring previously at. The covers were tinted up, arching up to the lower half of the bear's middle. With a low chuckle, I slipped my hands lower, tracing the lowest reaches of the bear's sizable belly. Yeah. He groaned deeply, arching his back as he lifted his hips. The seat slipped off of him, twirling down powerful thighs to reveal an achingly hard shaft. It seemed he was already dribbling a fair amount pre-cum, having collected under the cusp of his meaty middle. I didn't know touching him could get him so worked up. Maybe that was his stomach specifically. Either way, I reached for my prize while keeping one hand on my belly's belly. His noises were like music to my ears, his growling bass rising and falling in pits as I strode. He pawed at me, hands grabbing at my shoulder and arm clumsily. Anything just to touch me. I love how he always had to have contact with me, how needy he would get. It was my turn to let slip a moan. I grabbed at my rear, pawing at it as his fingers engulfed the base of my tail. I wasn't the only one with a bodily fixation, his hands gliding along my rudder. His thick feet braced on the bed, the seat slipping to the floor, along with the comforter. I didn't like having my view of him obstructed anyway. His fingers probed under my tail, and I found my breathing hitching as he testingly pressed at my entrance. I let him in. Honestly, I let him do just about anything to me in this state. Just one of his fingers was enough to stretch me wide. I found myself being lifted and grabbed by my hips as I was maneuvered around like a plaything. My thighs wrapped around Thomas' midsection, being brought head to head with his twitching endowment. If I wasn't blushing before, I certainly was now. Especially when Tarek slowly massaged a thumb into me. I couldn't help it as I watched my hips shoving myself into the softness of his middle. A softness that quickly hardened up as he clenched his middle. The bear rolled his hips with a labored breath. I took a deep breath, one that I knew would last me several minutes before plunging my mouth over the end of his cell. I bobbed up and down, swallowing as much as possible without unhinging my jaw. This went on for minutes, the bear's thumb popping into me, my hips grinding into that middle while his shaft plunged down my throat. The hitch of his breath and the seizure of his hips signaled he was about to go right over the edge. I screwed my eyes shut as he deludes, trying my best not to choke as I downed just about every last drop. A severed tail flipping down at the end of Tarek's thumb slipped out of me. Tarek's heavy brows gave way to a wobbling chuckle. I did not expect this. What? I asked, canting my head over my shoulder to look at the smirking bear. For you to be so eager. I grumbled a little, even though it was half-hearted. It's kind of hard not to be into you, Ton. You got the perfect package if you ask me. Package. He asked innocently, tilted his head. I didn't answer, just gesturing to the whole of his body. He seemed to catch my meaning well enough, fingers subconsciously tracing around his middle. We should clean. I will make us breakfast, then we can depart. Sounds like a plan. I grinned, hopping off the bed before taking his hand. Not that he needed the help, or that I could even begin to lift the big bear. God, I feel like I'm going to burst. I tried not to overeat this time, but the temptation was too much. Damn, that bear was for serving the leaning tower of pancakes in front of me. My stomach gurgled as I took a second to stop packing just to wildly groan. Tarek was outside getting everything ready for the journey ahead. While I hadn't finalized the distance with Daryl, there was a little gas station I stopped at. The last vestiges of civilization before my hours-long mountain trek. It was closer to the border than Iskut, but it would be enough to get us out. I stopped what I was doing, fingers brushing the zippered edge of my luggage. I couldn't help but look around the familiar wooden cabin, realizing that this was the last time I'd see it. The earthy smell of the timber combined with Talbot's personal aroma swirled around the cabin, mingling with the last smoky vestiges of a burning fire. It was crazy to think I'd spent the last few weeks here. Paradoxically, it felt like it was shorter than that. When Talbot's routines, a lot of days stretched into each other. I guess that's what they mean when they say time stands still in the country. Living daily with stress from classes and my job was enough to make life an agonizing quarrel. I frown crossed my face as I looked at my perfectly organized outfits. Tarek had the foresight to wash all my clothes as well. I didn't even have to ask. I frown crossed my muzzle as my tail wrapped around my side. Part of me didn't want to go. It was a simple life here, but Tarek made it worthwhile. But I knew that I wouldn't be able to last out here. If I didn't get eaten or freeze, I'd probably go crazy from the lack of technology or people. As friendly as everyone was, I'm unsure I could take larger doses of Yucca or Hallie. Selfish as it was, I wish I could take Tarek with me. I buried the thought as I ran the zipper around my suitcase. Better to find the bear than to sit in stone. It didn't take long to find Tarek. The bear was sitting on the far stool, a gleaming knife in one hand as he worked against saved wood. It seemed I caught him by surprise, his ear flicking before turning. Quiz. He gave me a gentle look before returning to his whittling. I noticed that he was subtly attempting to use his big body to block my view. Edging closer only proved the theory, his big shoulder shriveling. In a ton, he peeked up, momentarily paused his knife work. Yes. What are you doing? The question was innocent enough, yet Thomas' ears flicked back, wriggling. The answer was short but not rude. Whatever he was working on, it looked almost finished, though I couldn't make sense of the elaborate curls before he pocketed it. His smile was distracting enough, his unbroken fang poking it. Despite the expression, his eyes didn't match. They reflected a tight feeling in my chest, the lingering sadness to knowledge that our time together was short. Are you pet and ready to go? He stood, the chair groaning in relief. The journey would be long. And dangerous? I tapped on with a chuckle. Perhaps. His smile returned, lopsided as he tilted his head to regard me. It is not Tuxedo. Well, that was a relief. I wasn't in the mood to go spelunking again, even if it meant returning home. Yeah, I've got all my things. I gave the side of my suitcase a little kick for emphasis. We thumped down the steps and into the snow. It wasn't surprising that Talbot scooped up my luggage for me, hefting it up with just one arm. Over his shoulder, then onto the back of the snowmobile. How many supplies he managed to saddle on the thing was a small wonder. The engine rumbled as the vehicle rattled away excess snow from its chassis. I gave the cabin one last look, committing old boards and ice-crusted roof tiles to memory. Even though I hadn't been here long, it felt like a second home now. Talbot's fingers slid over my thigh, giving it a gentle reassuring squeeze. I held his sides tight, burying my face into his back. It was nice, and I could feel a little bit of my anxiety fading. We stopped just outside of town, to a part I'd never seen before. Several snow-glazed graves dotted the landscape, a rusting wrought iron fence slowly deteriorating around the perimeter. A sense of isolation permeated this place. I felt a sense of loneliness even with Tarek nearby. The snow crunched under my boots. Nobody had bothered to clean the graveyard. I guess people had bigger priorities in recent times. Tarek was deep into the headstones, hunched over one in particular. The snow was thinner as I approached, finally doing more walking than waiting. A saccharine scent caught me by surprise. A bundle of twin grass burned in a glass bottle, the ends a warm, wavering orange. The subtle incandescence illuminated Thomas' face, casting deep shadows over his features as he hunts over incense. He answered my unspoken question, shielding the newborn smoldering from a gentle breeze with large hands. The headstone was fairly new, more so than the others surrounding it. Carved in it was the name Uriah. I couldn't decipher the rest, etched in unfamiliar symbols that stretched to the mounted snow. Sweet grass, it was her favorite. I sidled up next to him, peeking over his shoulder. It smells like vanilla. He smiled gently as he regarded the slowly burning incense. It curled through the air like a lazy serpent as it rose. Closing his eyes, Tarek spoke softly, his voice a low rumble in his throat. The words he spoke were just as inscrutable. I could only assume it was a prayer as reverence washed over me. I dipped my hand in a respectful silence as I stood behind Tarek. The packed snow muted everything around us, his voice lacking an echo as he spoke. Even the wind showed its deference, leaving us in silence. He nodded in satisfaction, his chant complete. You will have to forgive me. I wish to visit before we leave. You know, when you said you wanted me to meet your mother, I thought you would snap my neck or something. Tarek stared at me, his expression unreadable. The explosive laughter that boomed out of him nearly knocked me off my feet. He wheezed, sucking and gulping, breaths only to laugh it back out. What? I snapped, cheeks heating up. It sounded like a threat. He only guffawed harder. Wait. He said between breaths, the corners of his eyes wet with tears. I am sorry. I did not think of the implication. It was humorous. Made the nation cracked with a laugh. Huh, yeah, it kinda was. She would have enjoyed the joke. He gestured to the headstone with a sentimental smile. Puns were her favorite. Puns, seriously? They're like the figure food of comedy. He paused, a smirk splayed across his muzzle. My brow arched critically. I did my best to imitate Tara, dropping my voice comically low. What? What? No. Why are we eating fingers, Chris? Why would I want to eat fingers? God damn it. The bear was incredibly pleased with himself, much of my chagrin. I pushed at his back for what little good it did as I rolled my eyes. I'm guessing she's where you get your unending source of humor? Perhaps. My father hated her jokes. I like her better already. She enjoyed language studies. Inuktitut has little humor. Is that what you were speaking earlier? He nodded solemnly. It was a prayer for the departed. He visited thick fingers lacing together. And I told her about you, us. A flutter of butterflies flitted in my stomach. Oh, Tarek grunted slowly with a nod. The incineration made my cheeks flush, so, I drawn quickly to think of a topic to jump to. Inuktitut. I repeated the word slowly in an attempt to avoid mispronouncing. I've been wondering, does your name have any meaning behind it? Tarek froze, his jovial expression sliding off his face like butter from a hot pan. Yes. There was a long pause, winds softly whistling in the frosted tree branches. Are you going to tell me? Tiny man. Excuse me? His cheeks flushed as he drummed his fingers nervously over his crouched knees. Tiny man. He repeated, this time with more conviction. Seriously? I bit back a smile, at least for Tarek's sake. Either his mother's sense of humor went off the rails, or they didn't imagine he would grow up to be so large. I could see it, especially after seeing his picture as a child, as a little kid. Yes, I suppose it is humorous. I think it's pretty cute. He blew sharply through his nostrils. It is nice you see it that way. How about Yuka, White Star? Something about him burns bright, alright? How about everyone else, if you don't mind me prying? Yura is only who is beautiful. Correct as anything frozen. If you had time, I will offer to teach you more of my language. Yeah, our mutual levity slowly bled off as Tara got to his feet. It wasn't until his massive frame moved out of the way that I noticed a bundled bouquet nestled against the base of the grave. Flowers? He nodded, giving them a scrutinizing look. Someone has been here recently. They don't look more than a day old. Many know her. He mused aloud, catching his head as he examined the violet bundle. Purple saxifrage. They were her favorite. That narrows down the suspect. He shrugged his shoulders He shrugged his broad shoulders non-committally. It does not matter. The big bear dusted the snow from his pants, scattering in puffs. We should go. Travel will take most of the day. I'm not one to argue with my guide. Lead on, big guy. His hand slipped around my own as he gave it a gentle squeeze. He shrugged his broad shoulders non-committally. It does not matter. The big bear dusted the snow from his pants, scattering in puffs. We should go. Travel will take most of the day. I'm not one to argue with my guide. Lead on, big guy. His hand slipped around my own as he gave it a gentle squeeze. The warmth chased away the chill as we navigated through headstones and out of the graveyard. Why are we here again? I need to double check with Daryl before we leave. Want to make sure we're meeting up at the same place. I said with an awkward chuckle as Tarek regarded me skeptically. Is he unreliable? I'm willing to take you farther if... No. I waved my hands in front of me. It's okay, Ton. I'm just double checking, that's all. Thankfully, I thought about plugging in my phone this morning. The cracked screen showed a full battery, something I felt I'd need by the end of our journey. A door to the back swung open, a brown-furred wolf stepping past. Huh? In his hands were freshly baked pastries. I could smell the alluring aromas wafted across the cafe. Surprise bled from my face as he regarded us. I didn't expect to see you two today. You need your coffee fixed, water weasel? Bristled, throwing at the wolf a scowl. He seemed to enjoy my reaction, a little smirk pulling the corners of his muzzle as he loaded the display case with his latest goods. Just here to use your Wi-Fi, Puke. Yuka's head popped out from behind his case like a meerkat, eyes going wide as he locked onto me. What the hell did you just call me? Next to me, Tarek wheezed, his face twisted into pure mirth. Puke, The way he recited it, his voice, rising in pitch, made it sound like he had only just now put together the play of words. Or, well, the play on name in this case. You could gnash his teeth behind the counter. Remind me to change the password. Probably won't help. And why not? Tarek answered, having gotten over his fit of laughter. We are leaving. That snapped Yuka out of it. The nonplussed wolf blinked a few times. Wait, you're leaving? His voice was oddly quiet, ears having dropped back. Yeah. The indignant strain out of him, countenance fading into a near and imperceptible frown. Oh. What, don't tell me that I'm your most loyal customer or something. Down the end of the cafe, the entryway to Philip's makeshift clinic fluttered. I wouldn't go that far. You're just... He flexed his hands irritably. You're one of the few tolerable people I know. A feline grazed the opposing cat, slipped across chairs and sidled behind the bar. I think he merely wants to communicate his sadness and see you go. The wolf snapped petulantly on reflex. I do not. I didn't fail to notice Philip's hand squeezing the wolf's shoulder. It reduced the wolf's ire to a smolder. Amor thinks very highly of you, you know? He stressed the pet name, the word coming out as a spine-tingling purr. Yuka opened his mouth before promptly snapping it back shut, thinking better. Philip took that as a cue to continue. It's been a pleasure meeting you, regardless of the circumstances. I laughed awkwardly, fingers flexing around my wrist as I squeezed it. Yeah, I guess this'll be my fairy starter problem now. He seemed to broaden from my joke. The snow leopard flashed at me one of those dazzling smiles. Just remember that you still need a few more injections. I'll make up the paper for you, present it to any physician, and they'll finish your treatment. As quickly as he appeared, the leopard vanished, slipping back into his little corner clinic. So you're really leaving, huh? Looks like it. I thought on my phone, answering distractedly as I exchanged quick messages with Daryl. No shit. I blinked, lowering my phone as I gave the wolf a confused look. Just, I don't know. His words were strangled, the wolf fighting to get them out as he tried to nonchalantly lean his lips against the countertop. Figured we'd have more time together. My brow lifted higher, fall down as I stared at him like he'd grown a second head. I thought you didn't like me. The wolf colored as he crossed his arms over his chest. No, it takes a while for me to get to know people. With such a sterling personality, it's no wonder. I guess we only started to hit it off, huh? He shrugged his shoulders, but I could see the ghost of a smile on the corners of his lips. Yeah, you're not half bad at persisting. I wasn't kidding when I said I'd be willing to hire you. You're being uncharacteristically kind. Did you hit your head? Is that your subtle way of asking if I'm brain dead? If I'm brain damaged? Yeah. Absurdity of Thomas Blunt honestly had me fighting a laugh as I bit down my lower lip. Eager colored, his lips pulling away from the bar top. The absurdity of Thomas Blunt honestly had me fighting a laugh as I bit down on my lower lip. Eager colored, his lip pulling away from the bar top. Well, fuck me for trying to be friendly. He rolled his eyes, the levity in his voice enough to show he wasn't serious. The wolf turned, rummaging around in a cabinet behind the counter. I blinked in surprise as he turned around, a sealed bag in his hands. Here. He slithered across the bar towards me. What is it? Some grounds. God knows what kind of swell you drink back at home. The bag was stylized with green paper, with the same coffee bean pod pad logo as the shop. I was gonna give you that spare coffee machine too, but seeing as you're leaving, he shrugged his shoulders. Whatever. Thanks. The expressive softness he gave me a short nod. Yeah, it's okay. You've been pretty cool. His jawline shifted in thought as he eyed me over. You want to exchange contacts? I'm the only guy with a good connection here. He already had his phone out, white blue light casting a glow over his smock. Figured you might want to, since Big White and Grumpy doesn't have a phone. Tom bristled as he crossed his arms over his imposing chest. I have no need for a phone. How will you stay in contact with your boyfriend? The wolf answered with a cutting level of sass. The ants took the air out of Tomac, the bear backing down with a low grumble. Plus, I quickly exchanged info with the wolf. Surprisingly, I got a list of emails and even a few gamer tags. Wait, you play online video games? He threw me a quizzical look. Yeah, why? Not like there's much else to do out here. I have invited you over if we had more time. He gave a dismissive wave, or something. we have already been to your apartment. Maybe I should have stressed the word invited a little more. The wolf rolled his eyes. Anyway, I'm not even gonna ask how you'll get home, but how you make it there safe. The curtain fluttered open with a florist, Philip returning. And here we are. I noticed more than a few sheets of paper pinched between his fingers. Your medical records. Yeah, thanks. If I might ask, what were your plans for Egris? The train. The couple exchanged glances. What? We will follow the track south. Tomek elaborated as if there was nothing peculiar about that statement. I'm not entirely sure that's a sound plan. I know the land. He answered almost a little tersely. Are you sure you're not willing to wait? I'm sure the roads will be cleared in a few weeks. There's no time, he must leave. The doctor flashed me a confused look. I gave him a sheepish shrug. I gotta get back home. I missed too many classes. That and my job isn't going to take any more excuses. You're not having Tomek take you all the way home, are you? I don't think his snowmobile is gonna do too great on pavement. I shook my head, quickly dispelling the notion. Now I've got a friend that would pick me up part way. That guy you were talking about? I appreciated that he didn't call attention to the fact it was my ex. Yeah, it sounded like that. The big cat brightened. If Tomek believes this is a prudent course of action, I can only wish you well. I could sense a level of mistrust in the doctor's words. Crashing out here in the first place probably colored his perception of my choices a little. Well, see, I guess. If you're ever in the area, I have a hot cup of coffee waiting for you. Even though I returned the gesture, I couldn't help but feel melancholic as I took the bag of grounds. I like that. With sentiments out of the way, I gave them one last wave as Tomek's lost paw took me by the shoulder. Tomek's hand slipped down and around my own. His warm palm pressed over the top of my hand as he squeezed gently. I'm surprised. Huh? About what? Yuka's grown attached to you. It was difficult for him to make friends as a child. I was his only one. I'm not surprised he doesn't seem to get along with people. He is afraid of loss, so he pushes others away. Tomek's pace slowed as he walked, his expression falling. I suppose I'm this way as well. I gave his hand a squeeze back, wiggling my fingers between his. Not anymore. He gave me a curious, sidelong look. I'm glad you opened up, even if it took a goofy art of sliding into your life. The big bear balked. You're not goofy. Eccentric, perhaps, but not goofy. I couldn't help but giggle even more when he leaned to kiss my head. He was getting into the habit of doing that, nestling his big nose between my ears. So what's your plan to get the gasoline? Tomek rumbled softly. Nothing elaborate. Not that a lot of his plans were, though I couldn't help but wonder. In the back of the South was a familiar feline. She was busily balancing a pile of boxes in her large arms, her tongue poking out the side of her mouth determinedly. Half her open contents jutting haphazardly, crammed underneath the box above. I'm pretty sure that was an OSA violation or two at play. Did Canada even have an OSA? Chris. She beamed wide despite the tilting tower of imminent catastrophe. What can I do for you? We're here for gasoline. Her smile slacked. I'm afraid I still can't give any away. She cut her head to the side. I thought we talked about this. Tomek exhaled softly, closing his eyes. I was afraid it would come to this. He stepped towards the still balancing links, and for a brief moment, a feeling of icy trepidation stabbed into my chest. Tomek's plan didn't involve anything rash, did it? He stopped short of her, my mind racing about what he might do. A hardened look, a grim determination in his eyes made my chest tighten, and then he dropped to his knees. The weight suddenly shook the south. Hallie stared blankly for the longest, so long that she didn't notice the topmost box toppling off, spilling its contents of candy bars across the floor. Christmas returned home. I will do anything you ask. I could see the gears spinning behind her gaze as she watched the prostrating bear. Anything? Oh no. Tarek looked as apprehensive as I felt as he peeked at the mistress of favors. Yes. The answer was quieter than I expected. The word caught in his throat. Her wicked grin held firm. She tossed the boxes aside, landing with her clattering thumb against the end cap of a shelf full of snacks. You know those figurines that you make? Her voice was sugar sweet, like a cake slathered with too much icing. I want to sell them in SOP. What? It seemed that Tarek said my sentiments. His expression blanked, the bear sitting back on his knees. Let's think about it. She continued, waving a finger through the air to punctuate her point. Fun little souvenirs, hand-carved by Institute's finest craftsmen. Of course, they'll have a fun little price point as well. But that's beside the point. She thumbed along her chin and thought. Still, gasoline isn't exactly cheap. It was like she was doing the math, her eyes twitching left and right. I'm sure you'll be available for a few dozen orders, won't you? Tarek sputtered, his face turning a subtle shade of red. Dozen? They take time. And the quality. Hallie interrupted him with a waving finger and a short, The quality is superb. I won't hear it. We're going to be business partners. It'll be so much fun. Don't you mean business indentured slave? Tarek let out a strangled sound, selflessness fighting with self-preservation. Save by the sound of the bell, the front door swung open. That won't be necessary. Hallie blinked in surprise, gripping her chest as she regarded the old polar bear that crossed her threshold. What won't be? She asked, suffusing her words with sugar once more. When you speak, half the town hears. Hallie looked as if she'd been slapped. I'll pay for the gasoline he requires. The statement set everyone in the room aback, all except the marble fox that hobbled unhappily behind the imposing Ursine. Tarek was already back to his feet, eyeing his father warily. But the nonplussed Lynx stared with wide eyes. What about your mandate? Was supposed to sit up behind my back? That set her back a step. He snuffed through a large, padded nostrils. You are lucky that I'm lifted as a restriction. You are? He seemed to recognize me for the first time. I received word that supplies are being sent to escort. He turned a pointed gaze towards Hallie. In addition to food and medicine, that this includes fuel. Hallie's jaw worked up and down as she tried to think of a response. But we had a deal. Her voice was a defeated, disappointed whine as her shoulders slumped. A low growl rumbled in Tarek's throat. I do not want to be indebted to you. The older Ursine scoffed. A growl rumbled in Tarek's throat. I do not want to be indebted to you. The older Ursine scoffed. You will instead enslave yourself to her whims. Tarek bristled but remained silent, his jaw locked tight. Still as willful as ever, I see. You'll need it if you go on this foolhardy trip. Behind him, Pennant cleared his throat. I think he means to say that he wishes you well. Is that right, Quark? The bear grunted under his breath. He should say as he means. Or do not speak. Astonishingly, Quark cracked a smile. Duet. I appreciate that. Panic is correct. He cleared his throat, leaning on his cudgel for a cane. An apology. Tarek's tone was sharp enough to cut to the bone, indignance rising. You wait until now? Kuat's gaze sharpened behind his glasses. I'm not here to mince words. I should not have struck you. I said unkind things. The word was as strange as if it physically hurt the old bear to get them out. I have carried that regret since the day you left. Why not speak to me sooner? Did you enjoy my exile? Now, that's not exactly fair, my boy. Quack waved a hand in front of the fox, gesturing for silence. Let him speak. You could have come to me at any time. Why now? Kuak wobbled lowly, fingers squeezing around the gnarled knob of his staff. I am a prideful old man, that much should be obvious. It is difficult for me to admit when I'm wrong. Tarak watched his father, eyes narrowed in suspicion. Yet despite his misgivings, he was still listening. Your mother's death weighed heavily on me. The town is dying. I felt as if I was losing everything. Then why did you cast me out? Is it because I enjoy the company of other men? Kuak snorted sharply, giving the floor a rap with the tip of his cane. I told you then, and I'll tell you again now. Having dalliances with other men doesn't concern me, but the town's future does. It was less of a question and more of an accusation, Tarek's golden eyes boring into his father. Yes, you would chain me to marriage simply to bear offspring. I do not wish to govern. I have never wanted this. Kuak shook his head slowly. That wasn't the reason I lashed out at you. You were going to leave without saying a word. Gone. Along with the Waska boy. Next to him pondered Stipend, his ears drooping back as a frown crashed his muzzle. You were the only thing left of my wife. And you were going to slip out of my life just as suddenly as he did. When you rebuked me and used her name against me, I lost my temper. Quack lowered his gaze. The proud, upright posture he carried himself was seen to seemingly weighed with age. I was too proud and angry to admit to my mistakes, to accept your way of life. Tawak leveled his gaze at his father, his expression unreadable. You are still grieving for your wife. Things take time. Do not make excuses. I have none. He turned back to Tawak. I don't expect forgiveness or even acceptance of my apology. There was no arrogance in his tone, simply stating matter-of-factly. Is it fuel or bribe? Then Kwak looked like he bent back a remark, a flash of anger over his face fading as quickly as it came. I harbor no expectation that a gift will rekindle a broken relationship. He sighed deeply, eyes closing as he leaned his weight onto his cane. It's merely a token of my regret. Take it. Tarek made a contemplative sound as he looked to me for support. It was clear that I had to say something, even though I felt like the awkward third party in this very affair. I think you should take it, and not just because it'll get me home. I stuffed my hands deep into my pockets, thumbs playing between fingers as all eyes landed on me. I know what it's like to have bad parents. All I've ever wanted from them is an apology, or at least the ability to admit they were wrong. I've talked with Kwak, and I think he's telling the truth. Pressing one of my hands out, I gave the back of my neck an uneasy rub. I'm not saying you should accept it, just... Despite my insides being tied into knots, I could feel a small surge of confidence. Maybe hear him out? I do not like it. And you don't have to. I gave him a small smile. It's ultimately up to you, Tarek. I'll support you either way. I could feel the tension easing in my chest as Tarek smiled back. Perhaps on my return, I will speak with my father more. So, do I still get paid? She asked hopefully, tapping the tips of her manicured fingers together. My face grunts. Kuak looked just about as unimpressed with the question. I already said you would. See Bean shrugging off judgmental look like water from an otter's back. Can't blame a girl for asking. I'll get everything set up then. God, how she flips emotions about money is enough to give someone whiplash. If I didn't know her better, I'd assume that's the only thing she cares about. I will assist her. The bear turned, following her out the back door. I felt it was more to get away from his father than anything. So, how do you know we were leaving? Punter tilted, sitting over the edge of the countertop with a playfulness that barely his age. I might have offered her a thing or two. I shouldn't have. It took a moment, but it clicked. He was probably standing just outside the clinic where Tarek and I were talking, listening in. Why was I surprised? He seemed the gossipy sort. Besides, it seemed like a good idea to tie up a few loose ends before you both left. Quite sight nearby, a focused gaze locked on a disheveled end cap. Take care of him, Arthur. I gave him a nonplussed look, the bear turning his head to glance at me. Take care of him? I considered his words, frowning. What do you mean? He's not leaving permanently. He smiled warily. The conversation was seemingly at an end, his broad shoulders turning. The thump of his cane still echoed in my mind even after he passed through the door. It felt like a weight lifted, the air becoming a little lighter. Don't mind him none. He's still got a few things to think over. Yeah, probably. Tarek too. Good thing he's got some time to clear his head. I almost envy you. Go off on a trip through the wilds. Drove for that now, though. There wasn't much envy on my end. Or was it looking forward to sitting on the back of a snowmobile for hours? Even less with what awaited at the end. You'll see him again. I blinked, pulled out of my thoughts by the fog. I know heartbreak when I see it, my boy. Besides, I've seen the way he looks at you. You wouldn't be able to keep him away even if you ended. I know heartbreak when I see it, my boy. Besides, I've seen the way he looks at you. You wouldn't be able to keep him away even if you ended up on this other side of the world. I just flutter at the thought. I've been trying to keep my feelings in check, but a third-person perspective puts it into focus. I hadn't felt genuine affections for anyone before Daryl. Yet somehow, even with the short time we spent together, I felt just as attached to Tarek. Probably more, now that I think about it. But that wasn't going to help things. Not when this was going to be our last day together. The feeling in my chest dropped to the bottom of my stomach. Punnett had left his purse to fox digging around in the discarded box. Candy? My face screwed up. Just the mood. He was already peeling the wrapper of a chocolate bar, taking a bite out of it. So you should be doing that? He tittered in amusement, his bushy tail swaying. My boy, I used to own this shop. That didn't entitle him to current day merchandise, but I suppose he knew better than me. I took the crunch bar that he dangled enticingly at me. It was nice to get a little sugar in my system. The familiar taste put me at ease. Besides, he wouldn't lift a finger against me. The glint in his eye gave me a sickening sense of trepidation. Perhaps Hallie merely inherited the skills of the master. A thud from the front door caught my attention. Hallie brushed the snow from her dark locks, giving her broad-shouldered body a little shake. Well, I got a place to be, and Tarek's pa could use someone to talk to. He flashed me that pageant old man's smile. Take care, Chris. You too. The fuzzy feeling faded along the fox as he slipped past Hallie's imposing self. In the corner, digging behind her countertop, I could hear the rattling of boxes, the feline searching for something. So you're really leaving, huh? That's the same. My stomach squirmed, a nervous worm wiggling. I I wouldn't be lying if I said staying longer wasn't tempting. She sighed whimsically, her wheel shaking back and forth, tufted tail wiggling over it as she continued to dig it round. Too bad you aren't majoring in a business degree. We could do wonderful things together, you and I. She let out a little exclamation before I could think of the world's most awkward response. Ah, I found it. Found what? A little present. It was something I was initially going to give to Tarek. Maybe put it on a shelf or something. You know, a little reminder of fun times. In her hands was a framed picture. And in that picture was an awkward-looking Arthur surrounded by friends. My breath hits as I realized what it was. A selfie back in Yuko's apartment. But since you're going to leave, it would be better if you had it. I noticed that she spared no expense on the frame. It was a simple plastic with an aluminum border. Also, show me your phone. I blinked. I can give you the file, silly. Oh, right. Without my phone, tapping on the screen a few times, ignoring the uncomfortable warmth in my cheeks. The file transfer was quick and easy once I remembered the right buttons to press. I nearly forgot that direct wireless transfers between phones were a thing. I guess it would be essential in a place without easy internet access. I opened the picture on a whim, tapping a few more times before pushing the power button. Gone was an old photo with bittersweet memories. I couldn't help but smile as I saw all 5 of us on my lock screen. A good choice. Hallie chimed, leaning over into my personal space. Pretty flattering angle, huh? It took a moment, but I realized she was talking about herself. Besides Hallie, I don't think anyone else wanted to be in that image. And I'm sure that Philip was only smiling out of politeness. Still, the photo was nice. Maybe it was the impromptu nature that made their personalities come through. We were ready to leave. Torrance stepped in through the front door. Boots stuttered over the old floor as a small smattering of snow followed in his footsteps. So soon? I could tell the over-the-top disappointment was mostly feigned, my eyes rolling. He ignored her, turning to me instead. We must leave. We have many hours of travel ahead. Traveling back down wasn't going to be nearly as fast as my way up here. The snowmobile could only go so fast, and following the tracks wasn't going to exactly put us in a straight shot back towards the border. Oh well. You know. She sidled coyly up against Thomas' side. We could still have that little production deal. The big bear shifted uncomfortably, leaning away from the mischievous cat. Quest. I was to leave. Quickly. Ah, come on. The bear hustled out of the shop with a burst of speed I had never seen before. Hallie let out a defeated sigh before shrugging her shoulders. Can't blame a gal for trying. My smile screwed up as I shook my head. Exchanging farewells with the lynx, I exited the shop and onto the snowy street. With goodbyes out of the way, we set out onto the road. Oh well, the tracks. Tarek had built a well-built snowdrift on the outskirts of town, using it to jump between the gleaming steel rails. Unlike the avalanche roads, the tracks were smooth sailing. Packed snow covered the wooden trestles between the rails, making them seem like wayward snakes still slithering into the forest beyond. Iskut was far behind us in the distance. Seeing the small, sprawling town nestled between the snow-peaked mountains was a sight I wouldn't forget. I lost track of time. The sun set high overhead, light reflected off of bright snow. Tarek hadn't said much, not that I could blame him. The sound of rolling wind and the constant spluttering hum of the engine would be enough to drown out casual conversation. Keeping the blaze between the tracks looked like it took effort. The trees whizzed by, frosted pines turning into a lazy blur. Tracks narrowed as we ran along a mountain's edge, pines obscuring what looked like a frozen lake down below. I have never been this far out from Escott. He spoke deliberately, raising his voice over the disruptive ambience. Really? He deliberately slowed, the engine puttering softly as we glided down a gentle decline. Yes, we are far beyond its borders. You didn't have to do all this for me. I squeezed his sides tightly, raising my voice, even though they tried to squeeze out as a whisper. Perhaps. But you need to return home. You cannot thrive in this place, Chris. I wish I could. My words were lost in the wind as I muttered them. Several bouts of near death were enough to put any fantasies of staying in Iska aside. So, you've really never been outside Iska before? Only the outlying territories. I have never ventured beyond the mountains. He hesitated before speaking, fingers flexing around his steering columns. I have never been given a reason. I was starting to put two and two together. Taking me home was an excuse to see the world, to taste exploration, to see things beyond his small hometown. I couldn't fault him for that. A small amount of wanderlust burned inside me as well. It was part of me. It was part of why I decided to drive out here in the first place. I wish to see more. It's a bit of a turnaround from living in the mountains for years, right? Perhaps that is why. I could see the corner of his smirk as he looked over his shoulder at me. He had broadened my horizons. Squeezing into his back, I couldn't help but brighten. It was setting in just how much he had changed. The frozen heart I had met could barely be incentivized to visit a nearby town, let alone explore the world. The ride was comfortable, my cheek pressed against Thomas' broad back. And then I heard it, a sound that made my fur stand on edge. My head snapped up sharply at the piercing roar of a train horn. Looping my gaze around his side, I spotted an approaching wall of yellow and blue. Thomas could see it too, his entire body pulling taut, knuckles widening around his steering bar. I thought the trains ran yesterday. My pulse quickened, fingers digging into Thomas' sides as the train crept closer, growing larger. It would seem that they are making up for lost time. How are we going to get out of the way? I could feel panic rising along with the chords as I watched the scene unfold. Thomas didn't answer my question, his eyes flicking fixated on finding a way out. There was no way to escape a rocky cliff on one side and a drop on the other. I nearly fell off the back of the snowmobile when he gunned it. Tarek? The horn wailed again, deafening now that we were only seconds away from a collision. Hold on. He shouted above the racket. I didn't need to be told twice. My thighs flexed around the sides of the snowmobile as I clung to him for dear life. I could see where he was angling for, a snow drift that was dead ahead, just enough to get us over the tracks. There was a violent jolt before everything became weightless. The rush of the air from the passing train nearly threw me from the seat, avoiding death by a fraction of a second as rail cars whipped past. I screamed Thomas' name as we sailed through trees, branches cracking and sputtering. A sudden descent found my face slamming into the bear's back. Stars flooded my vision and I felt my grip loosen. Pins and needles replaced sensation before things went dark. A throbbing in my head forced everything back into focus. I felt nauseous but still alive. Somehow I was still on the back of Thomas' snowmobile. My legs must have locked during our tumble down. We were in the middle of a frozen lake. Snowmobile spun out on dark ice. Are you right? The concerned Thomas' voice was palpable. The bear having twisted to fully look at me. I think so, just a headache. What happened? He let out a relieved exhale as he looked me over. We avoided a train. You stopped screaming on the way down. I was worried you fell off. A quick glance showed a streak of disturbed snow down the steep slope where he had slid. Behind us was an expanse of glittering ice. No going back. Are we stuck? The vast expanse of ice made me uneasy, my fur crawling. One slip into gelid water would be the end of us. Memories of my river-bound dip slithered through my mind, setting a sick shiver up my spine. Tarak twisted the key to ignition. It gurgled, churning before falling dead. The bear's brows furrowed in frustration. It wasn't a reassuring sound. As Tarak continued twisting the key, I could hear something new. An unearthly noise echoed across the still lake, a churning, cracking sound. Look! My voice broke as I stood up, pointing over Tarak's shoulder. The ice where we had landed had split. The slam of the snowmobile had fractured it. Spindly fingers spread through the lake's frozen surface, splitting the dark grass. Panic mounted as I let out a frantic squeak, clutching Tarak's shoulders. Tarak could see the cracks headed straight towards us, like death itself, reaching out bony fingers. The engine grumbled with every key twist, the starter failing to catch, with a spray out of blue-white faults hissing into the air as they closed the distance. And then it caught. The engine rumbled, the headlights flaring to life as pools illuminated approaching a death. Whoa! The engine roared defiantly as Tarak squeezed the throttle. Tread skipped over the ice, clattering over the near frictionless surface before finally catching hold. I was thrown forward into Tarak's back as we suddenly gunned it backwards. The cracking ice crept after us almost as if giving chase. Hold on. The snowmobile's frame groaned, listening to one side as Tarak lurched. Skis skittered as the treads suddenly locked up. We sailed along the ice, drifting in a lazy spin. The tread we engaged when we were righted bolted us deeper into the frozen hellscape. Haunted winds wailed, a haunting scream that whistled through the splintered ice. It howled and raged. The night it killed, it had desperately sought since I had first arrived. Behind us, the ice had been reduced to frozen float sand, bobbing on the water's rippling surface as we barely outpaced the loss of solid ground. There's a clearing ahead. I shouted over the noise, pointing over Thomas' shoulder. There was a break in the rocky shoreline, a smooth incline that ran to the lake's edge. He didn't need further prompting to turn our course, the snowmobile sliding wildly over the slippery slush. One of the fractures raced past us, looping around as if to cut us off from our goal. As we twisted to avoid it, the side of the snowmobile slammed into the jutting edge, nearly sending us spinning into a full 180. I could hear Thomas cry out, but it was lost in the mad scramble. The treads kicked up water as the ice sank beneath us. The last of the pristine sea that blanketed the sleeping lake fractured apart. We caught the last iceberg just as I thought we were about to go under. The momentum tipped it back, lost us into undisturbed snow. Tyler didn't take a moment to stop, and I couldn't blame him. We tore through the pines, passing through them, and put a distance between us and near death. We finally came to a halt in a clearing, pines surrounding us as the setting sun flitted through snow-dusted branches. The snowmobile lurched to one side, then to the other, as Thomas stepped off. He winced, letting out a hint of pain as he gripped the steering column for support. Tarak? The snowmobile lurched to one side, then the other, as Tarak stepped off. He winced, letting out a hiss of pain as he gripped the steering column for support. Tarak? I jumped from the back, circling around to check on him. He had gripped his ankle, expressing locked into a grimace. I am fine, he said between clenched teeth. No, you're not. I pushed the hem of his jeans up, fingers running along the ankle he was gingerly caressing. Wilson back the short fur showed a minor amount of discoloration, thankfully no swelling yet. I wasn't a medical major, but I knew a twisted ankle when I saw one. It must have happened when he hit the ice. Tarak grunted in frustration, gingerly pulling his leg from his grip. I will be all right. He attempted to stand, only for his leg to buckle. I was to help, tucking myself under his arm. We nearly tumbled to the snow, my legs buckling, wobbling with only a fraction of Tomak's weight bearing down on me. Perhaps not. He huffed under his breath, almost petulant at the thought he could be hurt. Can we make a splint? He rumbled thoughtfully, seemingly surprised that I even suggested it. Yes. His jaw clenched as he gingerly tested his weight. I can instruct you. He smirked wildly. You look as if this is my first time doing this. But well, this is not my first time being injured in the wild. He chuckled fondly, ruffling my hair with a large hand. It will not be the last. He gestured to the nearby tree line. Gather some strong branches. I will do the rest. I gave him a decisive nod before running off. It didn't take long to find what he was asking. Near the base of one of the older pines were a dozen fallen branches as thick as my forearm. By the time I returned, Tomak was already tying what looked like a scarf around his legs. Ah, you're back. A smile brightened his face as he looked over my bounty. These will do well. Come. He balanced on the edge of the seat, sticking his leg out with a look of mild discomfort. Place him on the other side of my leg. I will do the rest. Getting down on a knee, I pushed the branches open to place. He unfurled a stretch of rope, wrapped it around his shin, and pulling the branches tight before tying it off in a knot. Testingly, he stood from his perch, putting a little weight on his foot. This will suffice. A bashful moment passed between us before he spoke again. I will need more time. You don't need to be so coy about it. How's the ankle, though? I'm a little worried. It will heal. It is only a minor sprain. Yeah, but we're in the middle of nowhere. Just around us. The only sound besides our chattering was a frozen silence. What if the snowmobile is damaged and you have to walk home? I won't be here to help you in... My eyes widened in surprise as he silenced me with a kiss. He leaned forward, cupping the back of my head and a large hand caressing through my fur. I felt my knees buckle slightly as he tilted deeper into it, bracing his other hand on the side of the snowmobile. The flickering candle of anxiety snuffed out with the pins of Tomak's fingers. He rumbled quietly, a deep purr churning his broad chest. You're too quick to worry. We will deal with things as they come. When he didn't get an immediate answer, he spoke again. Yes. I gave a little nod. Yeah, sorry. I just don't want anything to happen to you. It's bad enough we nearly died out on that lake. Is that what you are fixated on? I thought nearly being hit by a train was more terrifying. He laughed, and the absurdity of it hit me like a... Well, I wasn't about to finish that thought. We both shared a laugh, Tomak squeezing me tight as I nuzzled my face into his flannel-covered front. God, I'd rather not think about how many times I have died without you. This land is harsh. It does not take kindly to those who are. He stopped himself by finishing his sentence for him. Weak? His smile slackened, expressing turning reproachful. You are not. Your strength lies elsewhere. He put a warm hand over my chest, thick fingers wrapping around my shoulder. I exhaled through my nostrils. Yeah, I know. My heart, right? It is good to see you are learning. He ruffled my hair playfully, enormous palm smothering my face. Hey, I pushed at his forearm, shoving the heavy weight off of my head. Sorry, it is easy to handle you. I puffed my cheeks, putting on my best pout. Yeah, well, lucky for you, I like it. The bear practically glowed, eyes lighting up. I had no doubt that his short tail was wiggling up a storm. So, anything else I can do? He nodded, gesturing to the open space on the other side of the glade. You will need to set up the tent. childhood memories of tangled bundles and posed surface making me shiver. Thankfully, in this case, the tent was a pop-up type, easy to deal with. We went about our separate tasks while I wrestled with securing the tent. Tarek was at the tree line, gathering bundles in his arms. He walked with a hobbling gait, but the limp didn't seem so bad. He returned with a fair amount of wood, dropping it down into the snow next to the snowmobile. Grist. I came bounding away from my finished work, stopping short of Tarek. Yeah? I tried to keep the eagerness out of my voice, but it was a vain endeavor. Do you know how to start a fire? I will take that as a no. He dug into the saddle pack, pulling out a small sword, flip open with a flick of his wrist. What's the shovel for? We must clear out an area for the pit. Sounds easy enough. I took the shovel and went to work. The snow was the easiest part, tossing it aside until I had a circular area about 2 feet wide. The hard part was the soil underneath. Metal clanged against frozen earth as I attempted to drive the tip into it. Thankfully, I managed to make some headway after a few tries. The chilled chunks yielded to softer earth underneath. Tarek seemed to approve of my progress, leaning his weight against the side of the snowmobile as he nodded. Phew. I exhaled, whipping a forearm across my brow. Even with the cold weather, some exertion still worked up some sweat. The snowmobile squeaked as Tarek lifted himself from it. With a gathered bundle of wood, he arranged the pieces into the fire pit, crisscrossing branches into a box-like shape. Unhooking a bottle from his bag, he gave the wood a few splashes with what looked like oil. Isn't that cheating? His brow lifted. I mean, in the wilderness, you use the tools that are available to you. My face flushed as I stuffed my hands deep into my jacket pocket. From a pocket, he produced a silver lighter, cupping it protectively with his large hand. He gave it a few sparkling clicks. Shielded from the chill wind, the orange flame danced, licking against a smaller kindling. The spark caught hold, nibbling at the edges of the cold kindling. It seemed to be a fight, the wood damp with the vestiges of once clinging snow. Yet somehow it worked. What's the shovel for? We must clear out an area for the pit. Sounds easy enough. I took the shovel and went to work. The snow was the easiest part, tossing it aside until I had a circular area about 2 feet wide. The hard part was the soil underneath. Metal clanged against frozen earth as I attempted to drive the tip into it. Thankfully, I managed to make some headway after a few tries. The chilled chunks yielded to softer earth underneath. Tarek seemed to approve of my progress, leaning his weight against the side of the snowmobile as he nodded. Phew. I exhaled, wiping a forearm across my brow. Even with the cold air, some exertion still worked up some sweat. The snowmobile squeaked as Tarek lifted himself off of it. With the gathered bundle of wood, he arranged the pieces to the fire pit, crisscrossing branches to a box-like shape. Unhooking a bottle from his bag, he gave the wood a few splashes with what looked like oil. Is that cheating? His brow lifted. I mean, in the wilderness, you use the tools that are available to you. My face flushed as I stuffed my hands deep into my jacket pockets. From a pocket, he produced a silver lighter. Covering it protectively with his large hand, he gave it a few sparkling clicks. Sealed it from the chill wind, the orange flame danced, licking against a smaller kindling. The spark caught hold, nibbling at the edges of the cold kindling. It seemed to be a fight, the wood damp with the vestiges of once clinging snow. Yet somehow it worked. Before too long, a proper fire began to pop and crackle, a trickle of smoke trailing into the air. Thankfully, Tarek had some blankets for us to sit on. It's better than having the snow seep into our jeans. He got a cooking range set up, a simple metal tripod with a slatted grill hanging from thin chains. I wasn't surprised when I saw salmon fillets being dropped onto. Really? More fish? Salted salmon is easily preserved. Be glad it isn't stew. Could you have even made that out here? He smirked. Easily. Better than most jerky, I guess. Better than more jerky, I guess. Salmon sizzled softly, the alluring smell carried on the air. Thankfully, our little clearing was shielded from the worst of the wind, thick snow-coated pines insulating us. It wasn't until seared vegetables were added to the mix that my mouth started watering. Tarek watched me out of the corner of his eye with a self-satisfied look. We sat in relative silence as the firelight danced shadows into the treetops above. I found myself leaning into Tarek's side, the warmth of the fire staving off the worst of the late-day chill. His arms wrapped around me without thinking, giving me a broad bicep to rest against. The fact that this would be our last night together was starting to sink in. Tarek's arms slid further around me, tugging me closer to him. Maybe it was for Tarek too. Saddles around us elongated as the fire began to dim. Tarek was usually chatter-prone, but even then he was uncharacteristically silent. The warmth we had shared faded along with the sun's light. Owens used painting what little we could see of the horizon. With an easy shove of the mounted snow, he doused the fire. The blacked wood sizzled, the last embers going dark. We to sleep. His voice was as stiff as his gait, the bear having gotten up to amble towards the pit's tent. My insides twisted, feelings churning like the contents of my dinner. He dipped down, his bulk vanished into the tent. He kept a hand on the flap invitingly, at least. Kicking off my boots, I slipped inside to join him. It was a little less cold. The stretched polyester ensured the wind didn't slice through us. The sound turned to a muted whistle as he zipped the entrance shut. Not that the silence was much better. He unbuttoned his shirt, sucking his jacket before lying on his side. I found myself sidling up against him, opting to keep my clothes on. Even with the provided blankets, I still couldn't shake off the chill. He didn't stop me from cuddling with him, but he didn't seem to encourage it either. I couldn't shake the sense that this was wrong. It wasn't that he had been hurt or that he had barely escaped death again. It was something deeper than that. And I was too scared to say anything or stupid to figure out where to begin. The entirety of my time in Iskut coalesced. From the beginning, when I met a close-off bear, to when he shared with me his secrets and his affection, the challenges we had faced and how we had grown, the confidence I had gained and the trust that Tarek had found. These thoughts rolled in my mind, pieces come together, a newfound courage. So I closed my eyes, my face pressed against his broad back. I love you. There was an agonizingly long stretch of silence. He had confessed feelings for me in the past, but it was out of loneliness. Did I get it wrong? And then I heard his voice, a fragile whisper. I love you too. I started a sharp breath of air, replaying the words in my head, trying to determine if I imagined them. Fingers slipped around my sides until his arms completely surrounded me. He held me close as if I were about to fade away, his chin tugging on my head. A second exhale blew through his padded nostrils. I am sorry. What for? I have tried to keep my feelings in check. You are leaving. You must be strong. I could feel him trembling, his hands digging into my back as he held me tight, but I cannot. Shh. Wrapping my arms around his burly neck, I hoisted myself, pushed my forehead to his, allowing him to gather a few settling breaths. I cannot be strong for you. Even in the dark, I knew he was crying. I could hear the tears in his voice. You don't have to be. It took every ounce of willpower to keep my voice steady. You're allowed to feel your feelings. I'm not going to judge you for them. I paused, a hiccup of a laugh coming out of me as my eyes moistened. I'd probably be worried if you weren't a little sad I'm leaving. He laughed as well, the sound exceedingly reddened as he clutched me. It is more than a little. Thomas' voice had gone hoarse, making it difficult to hear. Leaving with you wasn't just for your benefit. I was desperate for more time with you. It is selfish, I know. Why would I fault you for that? I gave the nonplussed bear pause. You wanted the same thing for me since the beginning. Yes. The question was small, unsure. To keep me safe, Tarek. I couldn't help but chuckle demurely. I mean, we almost got ran over by a train and drowned in a lake. But I would have been dead long ago if you didn't keep saving me. I just wonder what my life will be without that safety net. Your home does not have cliffs. You will be safe. I snorted, unable to hold back a one-note laugh. He seemed to take the levity in stride with a tired chuckle. We pulled gently apart, but only enough so that Tarek could grasp my hands. Our fingers twined as he put his forehead to mine once more. Do you mean what you said? What? I asked softly, returning a gentle nuzzle from the oversized Ursine. That you love me. I don't think he could have fielded me an easier question. Of course. There was a pregnant pause as his ears folded back. Why? His expression was like brittle glass, beautiful yet fragile. It felt like the wrong words could shatter him. If you think it's just because you saved me, you're wrong. I love you for who you are, not what you've done for me. The Texan slapped Thomas' apprehension, bleeding off the revealed ghost of a smile. You do not love me for my cooking. Tarek, I think I've had enough fish for a lifetime. We both shared a laugh, the mood lightening. The weight on our shoulders had lifted, and we were both grinning like idiots. His thumbs glided along the edges of my hands before giving them a reaffirming squeeze. Seeing you open up and change has been pretty incredible. If I'm honest, it inspired me to face my own problems, so I'll be okay. Tilting up, I kissed the top of his head, nestling into the smoky grays of his hair fur. We'll both be okay, he exhaled, nodding quietly. I think, if anything, I regret not saying it sooner. I did not feel it was my place. I did not want you to feel forced to reciprocate. Okay, I think I was still figuring myself out anyway. You say you do not deserve love. What changed? Yeah, I mean, I'm still working through that, but it doesn't mean I can't love someone. He nodded slowly before gently nuzzling through my hair. I am tired. We did nearly die twice today. His noise of amusement faded into a rumbling languor as he held me in his arms. Good night, Tarek. Good night, Chris. There was a short pause before I worked up the courage to repeat the words. Love you. His arms constricted lazily around me, hugging me like one might a teddy bear. Love you too. Morning was a blur. My phone had buzzed somewhere Along the way, a message from Daryl saying he was headed out. At least I had a signal again. After refilling the gas tank, Tarek had spent time hunts over a map with his compass. I double-checked with my phone's GPS just to make sure. It wasn't that much further, just a few more hours. Breakfast wasn't met with particular joy. The jerky had returned while I had no stomach for it. Tarek insisted I eat something, so I did. I could see the emotions written across his face, fondness tainted, bittersweet by the little time we had left together. It was a portrait that accurately reflected my feelings. The ride was thankfully uneventful. The car that stretched between us was as comfortable as it could get. Tarek took the time to reach around to hold my hand when he could, reaffirming what had transpired last night. Honestly, it felt surreal. We didn't talk about it all morning. It made me think the stress of yesterday had cooked it up in a dream. And then we arrived. It was the same little spot I had initially filled up at before all of this happened. The nostalgia of instant coffee and pre-packaged donuts tickled my tongue. Strange, it felt like a lifetime ago now. The altar I had been then felt so far removed that it was almost like I was an outside observer. My troubles back then seemed so small now. The snowmobile creaked quietly as Tarek hopped off. I noticed he kept most of his weight on his good leg. I know he already said he would be fine, but I couldn't help but worry for him. Almost as if in pure happenstance, in the distance a familiar army green truck pulled off the snowy street and into the gravel drive. I heard the music clap of doors shutting, followed by snow crunching. A familiar red-headed lion stopped short of us as we broke our embrace. He looked between us, but I couldn't tell what he was thinking. His smile was tired, bare-threaded. Hey. As ridiculous as it was, I could only think of a single reply. Hi. He eyed me up and down as if taking stock of my well-being. The corners of his smile lifted subtly. You look like you're doing good. His gaze drifted to Tarek, then down. You don't, though. Tarek grunted non-conventionally, but didn't otherwise object. Hey, I know we just met, dude, but I got a split kit in my truck. You want to swap out? I caught the brow. Since when do you carry splints with you? Daryl scoffed, a flash of his usual personality flashing through the dejected parlor. You kidding me? People twist shit all the time. He tried dealing with drunk linebackers who think they're indestructible. I raised my palms defensively. Okay. I guess I shouldn't get in the way of putting your sports medicine degree to work. He rolled his eyes before flashing at me a toothy grin. Ain't got it yet, but thanks. The snowmobile squeaked softly as Tarek leaned off of it. I was to speak to him alone. His gaze was pointed at Daryl, the lion balking back a step. I was so used to Tarek's presence that I forgot how intimidating he could be just by existing. I don't think Daryl was used to being around guys bigger than him. He seemed uncomfortable that he had to tilt back to look up at Tarek. Sure thing, big guy. He gave me a confused look. I could only shrug my shoulders in response. The two of them retreated to the truck, the suspension squeaking as Tarek sat against it. I stayed near the snowmobile, trying to mind my own business. Whatever they were talking about, I couldn't make it out. At least it didn't sound angry. I put my phone out of my pocket as I pressed the power button. The group photo greeted me, bringing a melancholic smile to my face. Their conversation didn't take long. Tarek hobbled back towards me, a properly fitted split squeezing his white shin. Well, it isn't broken. Miles sprang. He'll be good in a few weeks. He basically confirmed what we both thought. Good to hear it from someone who nearly qualifies as a medical professional at least. An awkward moment stretched between us, a line shifting as he looked between us. Hey, I'll give you two a moment. You two probably got some stuff you want to say. My chest tightened, cutting off a response. I gave him a curt nod. He took that as his cue to retreat. Curiously, Tomek went to one of the packs dangling from the side of the seat. I had hoped that I would have more time, but I suppose that I do not. Time for what? I wanted to give you a present. I bawled, blinking. You, In my padded palms was an altar. It sat over carved stone blocks, a long tail curling around the miniature boulders. Inquisitive eyes had been painstakingly detailed the little altar's neck turned to look at some unseen curiosity. What? My voice died in my throat as it choked up, realizing what this was. The detail was immaculate, made more profound by the early works I witnessed in his childhood bedroom. I want you to have this, to remember your time here. Something other than a score. Was this what you were working on since we first visited the clinic? He nodded slowly, a feeble smile creeping across his muzzle. I did not know what it would become. I opened my heart and allowed it to take form. He opened his mouth and I could hear the beginnings of disparagement of his own work. I didn't give him a chance. My lips pressed to his, hands folding around his own. It was a chest kiss, but one that lasted for a small eternity. By the time it broke, his face was alight, white furred cheeks burning. He was at a loss of words, his jaw working. Thank you. I shook my head. No, I said thank you for everything, Ton. The winter wind blew lazy flakes floating by. Darkened strands of Thomas' hair brushed his face, and in the glimmer of the light, I could see his eyes glisten. It is time for you to leave. I choked up, fighting back bubbling tears. It's not fair. His head suddenly tilted, giving me an inquisitive look. I didn't get you anything. He smiled, the sunlight radiating off the bear in a snow-haze halo. Do not worry. Your memory will remain. I will never forget our time together. I could not think of a better gift. This time, I couldn't stop hot tears from spilling over as he took me in his arms. Warmth and safety radiated from him, chasing away the winter chill. I didn't want to leave, and he didn't want to let go. But in the end, we both knew we had to. At this time, I choked, a strangled hiccup escaping me. I know you do not want to, but you must. Live your life, Quiz. He smiled softly, the gentle breeze caressing his fur. Know that I love you, and that we will see each other again. Pocketing the figure ring, I held him tightly. I squeezed with everything I had. My voice cracked, a stuttering sputter as I spoke. Are you going to be okay? He paused in thought, seeming to understand the duality of my question. I will be, in time. And then we separated, the cold air wrapped around me without his warmth, icy fingers trying to pry into my jacket. The moment was surreal as I took my first few steps away from him. I gave him a half-hearted wave, afraid I'd choke out a sob as if I said anything. Grabbing my stuff and climbing into Daryl's truck was a wobbly blur. I barely noticed a lion joining me as the engine bubbled to life. I could still see Tomek in the mirror even as we pulled off. He stood watching, his hands in his pockets. A lonely wind blew through his fur jacket, swaying gently across the big bear. My eyes burned as the weight of farewell finally set in. Then he was gone, and it was time to move on. To be continued. Thanks so much for reading so far. Hearthfire is a passion project between a small group of friends that we couldn't get anywhere without an audience. You can find more information about Hearthfire on our Twitter page. Keep an eye out for keep an eye on it for updates and changes. If you want to support the project, feel free to check out our Patreon page. Patrons get access to a preview build of new chapters a month ahead of time. Alright, so there he goes. He's in Devil's truck, and the last we see of Tarek is through the outside window of Devil's truck. So it really happened. The two of them say goodbye, and Chris is on his way back home. It's sad, but he had to go back home. He still got school to deal with, his job, his parents. Plus, he's an American citizen, so he's an American citizen who accidentally crossed into Canada. So if he decided to stay with Tarek, there will still be issues with immigration for Chris. So I think if they reunite again in person, I think either one of them will have to deal with immigration. If Chris decides to go to Canada and be with Tarek, then he has to deal with immigration. If Tarek decides to go to the U.S. and stay with Chris, then he would have to deal with immigration. So, there's still things that the both of them have to settle first before there's any chance they could see each other again. If they do. Yuka gave Chris his internet information about his internet, I guess, so at least Chris will be able to keep in contact with Tarek through the cafe's internet. It wasn't something about Yuka's phone. But anyway, he'll at least be able to keep contact with the village and with Tarek through his phone. So there's still one more update to come, so anything can happen in this update. So could Chris and what's the lion's name again? Daryl. Could Chris and Daryl rekindle their past relationship as a couple, or like boyfriends? Could that happen? And it ends with them being together. I honestly don't know how this VN will ultimately end, so that would make the next update a big mystery. I don't know if we're going to see if we're going to go through Chris's perspective and see how everything is in his life, or if it's going to turn back to Tarek and see the aftermath of him separating from Chris, or if it's going to be both. I don't know. It might be both. So I'm surprised that Yuka felt sad about Chris leaving. I thought he didn't like him really. Well, I didn't think he would care that much about Chris leaving. I was sad to see that he was sad that he was leaving. So, as when people look like they don't like you or don't like you being around, that might not be truly the case. That might be their personality. And I believe now that was just Yuka's personality, that he actually found Chris to be one of the few tolerable people he actually met, which is a good thing for him to say about Chris. that he's one of the few tolerable people in his life. So we got to see Tawak and his father talk about their relationship and everything that happened, and his father admitted that he's a very prideful man and that he regretted slapping Tawak and kicking him out. So I hope the two of them at least fix their relationship. That talk that the two of them had in the cafe was a good start. And well, so what's her name? That female feline there. I mean, it's kind of like the typical businesswoman, you know, eager for money and trying to get all the money she can. But she's very optimistic, a very upbeat and optimistic person. So that's what I like about her. And so I like that. I like Yuko's adoptive father. He seems like a nice man and tried to give Chris and everybody else advice and on how to deal with relationships and stuff like that. So I like the old man of Yuka's. So I'm about to end right now because this is bird chirping and it's distracting me. So thank you all very much for watching. Goodbye.